You're listening to 5-episode thriller. Dare to like this episode and subscribe if you hunger for more. Now, let the shadows begin to stir. Episode 1, The Arrival. Harper Harper stared out the window of the private jet as clouds rolled beneath them like silk. The Caribbean sun glinted off the wing, painting silver streaks across the clouds. The world below felt far away, far from wedding planning, far from London, far from reality. She took a slow breath, fingers tightening around the stem of her champagne flute. In a matter of hours, she'd be on a secluded Caribbean island. White sands, bottomless cocktails, and a villa so extravagant it looked like something plucked from a billionaire's dream. It was the perfect send-off, the perfect escape, and yet her nerves refused to quiet. They were almost all here now. "Look at this place!" Meera Patel's voice burst through the calm as she flounced down the aisle toward the plush, cream leather seats. Her bright patterned jumpsuit matched the chaos in her energy. "A private jet! I feel like a bloody pop star!" Tanya Locke followed close behind, tall and composed, aviator sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. She tossed her gym bag into the overhead compartment with practiced ease and gave Harper a grin that was almost convincing. "This beats a hen night at Soho House. I'll give you that." "Barely," Eliza Benton drawled from the rear of the plane, slipping off her designer heels and folding herself elegantly into the seat opposite Harper. "There's no caviar yet, or paparazzi." Her tone was light, but her eyes never quite softened. And then there was Sophie Nguyen. Quiet as always, unnoticed by most, but Harper saw her the moment she stepped on board. Dressed simply, a book tucked under her arm, Sophie gave Harper a polite nod before sitting by the window with the sort of silent grace she'd always had. They were all here now. The 4 bridesmaids of Harper Harper, reunited after more than a decade apart. Time had changed them, of course. They were older, sharper, some more guarded, some more brittle, but beneath the laughter and playful digs, Harper sensed something darker. Something unspoken. "Drink?" she offered, lifting her glass toward Meera. Meera laughed. "Darling, I started drinking at the airport." Laughter rippled through the cabin, too loud and a little forced. They toasted, "To Harper." And the jet climbed higher into the sky. It had been Harper's idea, of course. A destination hen do. One last wild adventure with her oldest friends before marriage bound her to a new life. Marcus, her fiancé, had been supportive. "Whatever makes you happy," he'd said. He didn't know what this trip truly meant to her. The flight was short to her. 2 hours from Puerto Rico to the private island Marcus had somehow chartered for the week. She hadn't even known he had the kind of money to rent a private Caribbean island. But then there were many things Harper didn't know about Marcus. And perhaps, she thought darkly, many things he didn't know about her. The plane descended into sun-kissed paradise. From the window, Harper saw a speck of land nestled in turquoise waves, ringed by pale beaches and dense jungle. As they disembarked onto a runway barely longer than a football pitch, warm air wrapped around them like silk. "Jesus," Tanya muttered, taking off her sunglasses. "This place is unreal." At the end of the runway, 2 staff members in white linen uniforms greeted them with fresh coconuts and cold lemongrass-scented towels. The air smelled of salt and orchids. The sea murmured promises just beyond the trees. A speedboat waited at the edge of a private dock. As the women climbed aboard, Harper let her fingers trail in the water. She could almost forget the unease that had crept beneath her skin on the plane. Almost. The villa emerged from the coastline like a mirage. Whitewashed walls, open-air lounges, infinity pools that seemed to spill into the ocean. Bougainvillea draped the balconies. Hammocks swayed gently in the breeze. Their rooms were spaced apart by raised wooden walkways above the jungle canopy. Everything was prepared. Personalized robes, gift baskets, sun hats embroidered with their names. Someone, Marcus surely, had thought of everything. "All right, bride," Meera said, arms flung wide. "You've officially outdone every hen do in human history." They clinked glasses again that night at dinner, under fairy lights strung between palms. Fresh seafood was served on silver platters. A local quartet played gentle island melodies in the background. For a moment, Harper let herself believe it was perfect, that this would be healing, that they could laugh like they used to, drink like they used to, and forget what time and adulthood had done to them. It didn't last. Halfway through the meal, Harper returned from the bathroom to find a black envelope on her plate. She frowned. It hadn't been there earlier. It was sealed with a strange wax insignia, 2 palm trees forming a circle. She looked around. The others had identical envelopes before them. Tanya had already opened hers, brow furrowed. Mira read hers out loud. Your first challenge begins at dawn. Be ready. They stared at each other in confusion. What challenge? Sophie asked quietly, her voice barely above the hum of the waves. I didn't plan this, Harper said, hands up in surrender. I swear. Liz gave her a long, skeptical look. Then who did? Harper had no answer. No staff came to explain. No clues followed. Just the cards, the cryptic message, and the island, stretching out dark and unknowable around them. Later that night, Harper sat alone on the balcony of her suite, watching the stars ripple in the pool below. The envelope lay on the table beside her. Something about it made her skin crawl. It was too deliberate, too theatrical. She thought of the 4 women sleeping in rooms not far from hers, women who had once known every secret she had, women she hadn't seen in years. Some part of her had hoped this trip would fix them, that they could be girls again, reckless and inseparable. But old friendships carried shadows, ghosts, things left unsaid. Footsteps approached. Harper turned, startled, but it was only Tanya, barefoot, holding a half-empty wine bottle. Couldn't sleep? Tanya asked, dropping into the lounger beside her. Harper shook her head. You? Tanya shrugged. This place? It's too quiet. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the jungle. Were crickets, distant waves, the occasional rustle in the trees? You really didn't send those cards? Tanya asked finally. No, Harper said. Tanya looked at her. Then someone did, and it wasn't me. The bottle tipped back to her lips. Harper didn't press. She didn't want to ask what Tanya was thinking. She didn't want to hear it aloud, that maybe someone else on this island had their own plan. Eventually, Tanya stood and left. Harper remained, staring out into the dark. The island was beautiful, yes, but it felt like a stage, like something had been set up, waiting for them to stumble into the script. She picked up the envelope and turned it over in her hand. The wax seal cracked as she peeled it open again, reading the message once more. Your first challenge begins at dawn. Be ready. Challenge. The word echoed through her. Not party, not game, not surprise. Challenge. As if someone knew exactly what lay buried between them. As if someone had come to dig it all up. Harper closed her eyes, hearing laughter from the past. The boarding school corridors. The secret notes. The midnight dares. The betrayals. The pain. The truth was, they had drifted for a reason. The truth was, maybe someone didn't want this to be a celebration. She tried to sleep but couldn't. And when dawn finally came, painting the sea in soft pinks and oranges, she was already awake, dressed, tense, waiting to see what the island would ask of her. Whatever this was, it had already begun. At precisely 6 a.m., a bell rang. It wasn't mechanical or digital. It sounded hand-wrung, like something from a monastery. A single chime, clear and sharp, floating over the trees and through the rooms of the villa like a summons. Harper sat up immediately. She hadn't slept. Down below, someone had lit torches along the jungle path leading to the central pavilion. Mist still clung to the underbrush, curling like fingers around the trunks of tall palms. She heard footsteps above her. Tanya, moving quickly. A door closed. A voice called out. The others were stirring. In her bathroom, she splashed water on her face, dressed in loose linen pants and a cropped tank. No makeup, no jewelry. She left the envelope on the nightstand. She didn't need to read it again. The sky was pale and streaked with coral when they gathered. Liz arrived last, hair perfectly coiled in a low bun, even this early. She looked at them like they were part of some bad team-building exercise. Is this a joke, she asked, because I have a spa appointment at 10. No one planned this, Harper said again. Not me, not Marcus. No one? Sophie's voice was soft, but her eyes were sharp now, watching everyone. Not even as a surprise? They were standing in a loose circle on the polished teakwood of the pavilion deck, the jungle thick and green behind them. Before them stood a woman none of them had seen before. Tall, severe, wrapped in all white. She wore a wide-brimmed straw hat and held a clipboard. Good morning, she said. Her accent was hard to place. Caribbean, maybe, but clipped with edges. My name is Kieran. I will be your facilitator for this experience. What experience? Mira asked. Kieran gave a cold smile. You've been selected to participate called The Reckoning, a curated psychological experience designed to purge emotional toxicity through shared vulnerability, consequence, and release. There was a pause. Mira snorted. Oh, come on. This is some goop shit, right? Kieran didn't blink. Everything you experience this week is part of the process. You will not be harmed. You may, however, be uncomfortable. Harper felt her heart begin to pound. Kieran held up a small white card. Your first challenge is simple. Each of you will write down one truth, something you've never told the others. It must be real. It must be yours. The truths will be read aloud this evening. You cannot identify yourself. If you do, or if you lie, there will be consequences. Consequences? Liz asked flatly. Like what? No cocktails? Kieran smiled again. Let's begin. You have until sunset. And just like that, she was gone. Into the trees, silent as fog. For a long moment, none of them moved. A bird called in the distance. Waves broke faintly somewhere beyond the cliffs. This is stupid, Liz said. I'm going back to bed. But no one followed her. They scattered after that. Harper wandered to the eastern side of the villa, where the cliffs curved down into a hidden cove. She found a hammock and lay there, staring at the canopy above, mind circling the same question. Who planned this? Not Marcus. He wasn't cruel or theatrical enough. Not Harper herself, of course not. But then, who? She thought back to boarding school, to long nights and cruel pranks, to whispered alliances and petty betrayals. They'd been inseparable, but they'd also been volatile. There had been real hurt, scars that never quite healed. Tanya found her mid-morning, carrying a carafe of coffee. Mind if I? She asked, nodding at the other end of the hammock. Harper shifted, and they sat in silence for a while, the hammock swaying gently. So what are you writing? Tanya asked after a while. Harper hesitated. I don't know yet. I do, Tanya said. It came to me instantly, like it was waiting. Harper looked at her. Tanya didn't elaborate. She just sipped her coffee and watched the trees. By lunch, no one had spoken of leaving. The boat dock was empty, the staff nowhere to be seen. It was as though the island had quietly locked its doors. They ate in silence under the pergola. Platters of fruit, chilled salads, fresh-baked bread, a pitcher of sangria no one touched. Has anyone seen Kieran again? Sophie asked. No, Mira said. And I looked. She said there would be consequences if we lie, Harper said. Liz rolled her eyes. She also said we'd be purging emotional toxicity. It's just rich people therapy games. You paid someone to traumatize us. I didn't pay anyone, Harper snapped. I don't even know who she is. The words landed heavily. For a moment, no one said anything. That evening, they reconvened. The sun dipped into the sea, gold bleeding into crimson. The torches were lit again. A bowl sat in the center of the table, 5 folded cards inside. Kieran was waiting for them. Without a word, she drew the first card. I slept with Marcus. Once. 6 years ago, before you were engaged. The silence was immediate, thunderous. Harper felt something cold spread through her chest. Kieran read on, calmly. He said you were over. You weren't. No one moved. No one spoke. Kieran dropped the card into a small metal tray beside her. It caught flame and disappeared. Next card. I once told someone something that got a girl expelled. I never corrected it. I still think about it. She didn't deserve it. Harper glanced at Mira, whose jaw was tight. Tanya looked away. Another card. I watched someone get hurt because of a choice I made. I let them take the blame. I never said a word. The sea hissed in the background. Next card. I've thought about not coming to the wedding. Not because I don't love Harper, but because I don't think this marriage is safe. Sophie, quiet Sophie, was staring at the flame, unreadable. Final card. I once said something to someone that ruined everything. I didn't mean to, but I was angry, and I was jealous. The last flame flickered out. Smoke rose into the night sky. Harper couldn't breathe. The truth clung to her like smoke. One of them had slept with Marcus. But which one? I told you there would be consequences, Kieran said, standing. Tomorrow, you will vote. The person you believe wrote the first card, the one about Marcus. If you vote correctly, the experience continues. If you vote wrong, the stakes increase. Stakes? Mira said, voice tight. What does that mean? But Kieran was already walking away. That night, Harper didn't sleep. She sat at the edge of her bed, heart pounding. One of them. One of the women who had toasted her engagement. One of the girls she had trusted. She thought about the old games they used to play in boarding school. Truth or dare, secrets scrawled on bathroom mirrors, mean notes slipped into lockers. But they were children then. This was something else. She got up, walked barefoot to the pool, and slid into the water. It was warm, comforting. For a moment, she let herself float. Then she heard footsteps. Sophie stood at the edge of the water. "I didn't write the card," she said quietly. Harper didn't answer. "I don't think it was you either," Sophie added. Harper turned to look at her. "Then who?" Sophie's eyes were dark in the moonlight. "I think that's the point. It doesn't matter who. Not yet. What matters is who we become because of it." Harper frowned. "What do you mean?" Sophie stepped back into the shadows. "This island, it's a crucible. That woman, Kieran, she's not just playing a game. She's making us into something, or breaking us into it." Harper floated there, alone in the water, long after Sophie left. Above her, stars wheeled in silence. She remembered another night, long ago. The 5 of them huddled in a dormitory, telling secrets, laughing too hard, crying for reasons they didn't understand yet. Someone had said, "No matter what, we'll always be each other's firsts. First best friends. First heartbreaks. First betrayals." The circle had already begun years ago. They were just finishing what they started. End of episode 1. If this tale left you uneasy, give it a like. Share it with someone brave enough to listen alone. And subscribe to 5-episode Thriller. Your next nightmare is creeping closer.